Welcome to KHM Today, your weekly resource for industry news and straight up fun. I'm your host, Carolyn Orff, and it is July 27th, 2022, and it is National Disability Independence Day. And so we have an incredible lineup to help share with you how anyone with these sorts of challenges can still travel and travel with relative ease. So I'm excited to have special needs group with us along with a panel of KHM agents for our Expanding the Lens segment. But before we get there, just a couple of things. Number one, start paying attention to our cruise partners because COVID testing requirements are starting to drop off for some of our partners, Virgin Voyages, Holland America, Margaritaville. So just keep an eye on that so that you can make sure that your clients have the most up-to-date information. You guys, not only is it National Disability Independence Day, but it is also Besties Day. So I am so excited because our very first topic has to deal with traveling with your BFFs. And I know some of us at some point in our lives have done this. And if you haven't done it, then you've watched the scenario play out with your clients. So please welcome Ashley Newton from the KHM video team here to share her experience traveling with her BFFs. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Carolyn. I'm super excited to be back on the show. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here because I think this is such a fun topic and it's also a sensitive topic. But I did a little research beforehand and I had to chuckle because the top 10 articles that come up in a Google search are all about how you don't want to miss out on this opportunity, right? Everyone's doing it. You can have fun. It's going to be amazing. But you had a little bit of a different experience. And I know I've had different experiences as well. So go ahead and open this up with, where did you go and what was your experience like?
Okay. Well, in short, I will say it was a learning experience. I'm not going to say if it was all good or all bad because I tend to think there's a mix of both. But I was traveling with two of my lifelong friends. I mean, we've been friends since primary school, middle school, but somehow we've never actually traveled together. So we got an opportunity to stay with family of one of the friends. So I wasn't even really thinking about it like a vacation. I was thinking about it more as a weekend away down in Florida. We were at West Palm Beach, actually, which, I mean, it was lovely. But I think that was my first mistake, was not really having those conversations that you would have if you knew that you were going on a vacation with people. We didn't talk about what they wanted to do or what experiences were important to me or, who's going to be our detail person. We skipped all of that.
Right. And I think that's like part of the qualifying process that as an agent we do. And I know when I have groups of ladies that want to travel, I kind of go through that with the group leader. But I think when it's our own thing, we kind of forget. I know that I have what I call my fireside friends. These are the friends that we sit by the fire and we drink wine and we have great conversations and we talk about everything under the sun, including travel. But I don't want to physically do it with them. There's other people that I can travel with and, roam the globe with that we fit better. Our travel styles fit better.
And to me, that's the key is our travel styles. We sort of assumed, I guess, because we get along so well that they were going to be in line. Uh-huh. They were not.
So what were some of those differences?
Oh, I'll tell you. First, I'm not the sort of person that I need every single day planned. I don't need a, detailed itinerary per se, but I do like to have like one thing maybe that we're all looking forward to or, to structure the trip around. They were like, nah, we're just going to see what happens. I don't want anything planned. I don't want to be sort of like beholden to anything. So I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll just figure it out day up. I'm easy breezy, no worries. But then we're in it. Right. And this is where I really started to see the changes arise. And one thing that I did mention is, I love fresh seafood. And I'm from Cleveland, y'all. So it's not exactly like we're in the seafood capital of the world. Right. So it was important to me to find a little place. So I mentioned that and I figured that we'd get to it. But we didn't. I will say, however, that we spent every day out to eat and we started our day with a big heavy, kind of expensive breakfast. Now, I love food. Most of my travel experiences are tied with food and great experiences, but that's not necessarily how I want to start my day, especially when we're going right to the beach after that. So I'm stuffing myself into a swimsuit, I'm baking in the sun, and they had biscuits and gravy. So I'm getting biscuits and gravy. It was just, not a good, way to piece everything together. I would have much rather saved some of that money, had a light breakfast, start the day that way, and then like go out to eat or go out to lunch and, just sort of, we had different ideas of even where we wanted to eat and how we wanted to eat and something that fundamental. So I was like, okay, but we'll see what happens, right? But then we get to the beach and I'm like, let's hit the water, everyone. Like I have my goggles with me. I have like little toys in my bag. Like I am a child. Like I am ready to hit the waves. Now, my one friend is a mother of 3 young kids. This could not have interested her less. She wanted to stay in the sand. She wanted to sleep. She wanted to tan, which who can fault her for that, right? It's her vacation too. And then my other friend did get in the water. She did play around with me, but Carolyn, she's still sunburned. 4 months later. So she really had to watch how much she was in the sun, But like our activities, completely different. Even just walking. I was like, let's go for a walk down the beach. I can't think of a single beach vacation I've been on or I haven't taken a walk down the beach. They were not into it. They were not having it. They wouldn't like walk around and explore with me. So we just all in all had very different ideas of how to spend our days on vacation.
So do you think at the end of the day, these are people you would travel with again? You would just kind of set it up differently? Or do you think that there are people that really you should not travel with, and just be friends in your hometown?
Well, let's just say all the stuff in the day, in the mornings, we're very different there. Maybe, but even at night, I'm a night owl. Even at home, but on vacation, are you kidding me? I'm barely sleeping at all. I'm making the most of every second. And I wanted to go out, maybe check out the nightlife, check out some bars, maybe do some night swimming, or even just staying up, watching movies, acting like we were in high school at a sleepover. Something would have been great. They were asleep by 10 every night. So when you add that to it, and then the travel plans, of course, everybody knows right now, flying isn't exactly always fun. I know you've been lucky, and I hope that continues for you.
Yes, knock on some wood.
But we got through security. We're sitting by the gate for our one flight, and then I'm like, I should check out our connecting flight. I probably should have done that before going through security, being in travel, but lesson learned. And I see that it's canceled. So that started a whole new mess of, well, one person thinks we should just stay here, wait it out, stay in Florida. Another person's like, well, I have to get home. My dog's being boarded, or, I don't have the PTO for this. We all had different obligations, different reasonings, different everything. And we had never even talked about it.
Yeah.
In the end, we did decide, let's get a rental car. We drove 18 hours straight home. And then there was the mess of that when we got home. Well, how do we shake out the money? Who owes who for what? And we all had different ideas about how to get that done. So when you take all of that into account, I don't think I would travel with this specific group of people again, unless a lot of things were different.
Yeah.
Like maybe it wasn't just us, or maybe it was a little closer to home, or I don't know. Yeah. Right now, my answer is probably not so much.
Well, and I think it's really important to be real with yourself about your friends. And these are people that you connect with on a daily basis, and it's totally fine. But that doesn't mean that leaving the state with them is the best choice. Like I said, I have wonderful friends that I will, sit around the fire with, but traveling with them can be a challenge. And, be very honest about the intent of the trip as well. Like, what are your goals? Do you want to sit there? I mean, I've traveled with girlfriends before, and one's not a drinker, and the other 2 of us were at the pool bar, and one spends 40 minutes getting ready for dinner, and I spend 2.5 minutes getting ready for dinner because my hair's still going to be enormous anyways. So I, really understanding, like, why are you going on this trip? Where do you want to go? And do you truly want to go with these people? Yes. And so I feel like that might be the next time this comes up, you might be saying to yourself, I do want to go on a trip, but who do I want to go with?
Yes. Well, and I learned a lot about myself on this experience as well. And, like you were saying, one friend does this, one friend does that. I always thought I'd be fine. Oh, well, I'll just do my own thing. Turns out I don't love that. I like having a buddy. I like having somebody who's excited about the things that I am, so that we can experience it together,
Right.
and talk about it and sort of soak it all in. So I learned solo travel, probably not something I'm like signing up for like right away.
Yeah.
I also learned it is okay, even if you are a people pleaser, to like stand up for yourself a little bit. Because like I mentioned earlier, that seafood thing, I don't think anybody would have been too mad at me if I was like, you guys actually really want to make time to do this. Do you mind if we go somewhere for dinner tonight? But I was just so focused on making sure everybody else was having a good time that I ended up missing out on something that could have made a big difference for me and how I felt about the trip. So I'm going to try to take that advice and actually live that out next time I'm in that situation, and actually plan for these things and talk through, what are we going to do if stuff goes wrong, so that when tensions are running high and you're in that in the moment, you don't have to, use your brain power for that. You can go, oh, guys, we talked about this. Are we still good with that plan? Let's, do what we talked about.
And I have to tell you, I love your advice with, stand up for yourself, because as advisors, there's a lot of times where we're planning the trips. For example, I'm going on a trip with my family this weekend, my daughter's graduation trip, 1 week. I don't know that most of my family even knows where we're going. They've made that comment. We have no idea where we're going. And I'm like, how do you guys not know any of this information? You paid the bill. But I have to remind them on Saturday when I get on that ship, the travel advisor is done and it's my vacation too. And I think sometimes that's a hard switch to make, but it's really important. It's one thing if you're the group leader for a group. It's another thing if it's a family vacation that you've planned, because I feel like you get to switch that travel advisor piece off and become the guest as well and enjoy the experience and not answer all those questions. So maybe I need to give my family more information, but we'll see if everyone gets to Miami on Saturday. Well, I just love this. I think that it's a topic that is endless. I think that this is a constant conversation. Who can you travel with? Who should you travel with? And I thank you for being open enough to share the things that you learned, because I think it's important.
Yes. I will say, just because they are your besties does not mean they will be your travel besties. And that is 100% okay. You shouldn't let it ruin relationships. You shouldn't let it even ruin what you can idea to vacation. I still look back on that and I still feel incredibly thankful to have that time with them. But it was a learning experience. Yeah. And one last thing I learned, I should have known this about myself, but turns out I'm a control freak. Don't like not having control. So if it is within Midwest driving distance, and all my people in the Midwest know we're very liberal with that term, it means whatever we want. I'm probably driving from now on. So
really? Okay. That's good to know.
I hate driving so much. So that really says a lot about how much I would rather drive than give up control. So
okay. I love it. It's, you know what? We have to be honest and real with ourselves. I mean, when I think of travel, if I'm at the beach, I'm having a very laid back time. If I'm on a cruise, a little bit more activity, a little more social. If I'm in Europe, I am go, go, go. Let's have everything planned. So I have almost a different personality for every type of cruise. But if I'm at the beach, I'm pretty laid back and I'm a book reader. I don't really kayak, but I'll boogie board, I'll paddle board. But for the most part, it's my tush on the beach, just hanging out, having fun. Every other vacation, I up my activity level.
Well, we might not be beach besties, but I think we could maybe do Europe together. So we'll have to talk about that.
Absolutely. And Disney World. Totally can do Disney World with just about anyone that will get up at the crack of dawn. So, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on today. And we do want to let everyone know that Ashley will be hosting next week while I'm on vacation. So, and you're in for a treat. We have some amazing people lined up for you next week as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. So, as we mentioned, it's Disability Independence Day. And to me, nothing screams independence like traveling. Karen Leonard from Special Needs Group is here today to bring awareness to the travel agent community about the resources available through Special Needs Group so that we can better assist our clients with traveling. Welcome, Karen.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Carolyn. And I want to thank the KHM family for allowing me to participate today. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, before we get into everything that Special Needs Group has to offer, do you travel with your besties or do you hold back?
I do. I travel with family. I travel with my besties. So yeah, I encounter all the challenges. Yes.
Good. Well, let's go ahead and start with what Special Needs Group has to offer. I was very surprised when we talked last week by the depth of product that you guys have to share with those that have challenges. Can you share with us what some of those things are?
Sure. I mean, most people know us as a mobility assistance company. First of all, for people that aren't familiar with who we are, we provide special needs equipment rentals for people that want to travel the world. We operate in 217 metropolitan areas in 70 countries. So we have a huge global footprint. We do offer mobility stuff. That's what a lot of people think of us for, scooters and wheelchairs and things like that. But we also offer oxygen. We do special requests such as cribs and pack and plays in some places. We offer braille printing services. We even have life vests for dogs or for service animals in some places. So we run a whole gamut, calibrated refrigerators for medications and breast milk. We do all kinds of crazy stuff.
It never would have dawned on me to call you guys for any of those. Well, except for wheelchairs and scooters, to be honest. Yeah, that's a huge. What is something that you offer that most people don't know, and it's kind of the one off or two off, but you still offer it?
Oh gosh, we have a lot of those kinds of things. We have mulch for service animals. We have kits for little people. So we have stair steps and things like that for little people if they need those kinds of things. We have one of my favorite stories is we had a gentleman who was a client of ours. He was visually impaired, so he had a service dog. The dog itself was special needs because it could only eat a certain kind of dog food. And he took the dog on a cruise from Miami to Italy. And I don't recall the exact circumstances, but he ran out of dog food. And he couldn't find it since it was a particular kind of dog food. He couldn't find it readily available. His travel advisor couldn't find it for him. The cruise line couldn't find it for him. We found it elsewhere in Europe and got it to him in Italy in time for him to arrive and so he could continue his trip.
Oh my goodness. That's really amazing. That's amazing. So let's talk about, you talked about the number of countries that you are in. We have heard nothing but staffing shortages. Has any of this impacted your ability to get product from place to place?
That's a very good question. I would say overall, no. We have had a couple of challenges because basically we were all inoperable for almost 2 years. So we have had a few challenges where some of our contracted agents that handle equipment for us, and just so you understand how we work, most of our locations are staffed by people who have a similar business there, but they are using our equipment. We ship our equipment there so we can track it, so we know exactly where each piece is and that kind of thing. But some of those people, unfortunately, went out of business. So we have had to scramble over the last 6-8 months and gather new relationships. And unfortunately, some of those people also, we had to as well. We had to sell off some equipment so that we had some income stream coming in. So there have been challenges. We have spot issues, if you will, sometimes, but we work very diligently to correct those issues. For example, we had a little bit of a supply chain issue in Alaska before the season started, but we got that fixed. So, those kinds of things do pop up that weren't necessarily a challenge prior to the pandemic, but, we do our best. And so far, I don't think our guests have really had too much of an impact.
Good, good. So sometimes the qualifying questions can be difficult to ask. And I know I do a phone consultation, so you might not be picking up on something that you would if you were face to face. So what are some ways that we can ask these questions without feeling intimidated by them or saying the wrong thing? Or is it in your experience where the client tends to share that information before the advisor has to say anything?
Well, that's actually a two-pronged question, because there's a large segment of the population that probably won't say anything, and I'll get to them in just a minute. I think it's just important because the person that you're talking to probably is not the person that has the special need. They're going to be a family member or a friend, and they may not even be thinking that this person that has the special need is going to be able to travel with them. So they may not even be including them in their thought process for planning travel. So I think it's so important for the advisor to be proactive in qualifying. Now, how do you do that and feel comfortable? Let me just put your mind at ease. This is no different to them than if you asked them if they had a dietary issue. Okay? They want people to understand that, yeah, they might have a challenge, but they also want to be treated like everyone else. So first of all, you have to erase the stigma in your own mind. But the easiest thing for you to do is lump this in with any kind of dietary question you might already be asking, and just broaden the scope and just say, hey, is there anyone in your traveling party or anyone you think might want to travel with you that has any special needs I should be aware of, such as a special diet or mobility challenges or whatever. And if you just kind of gently ask it that way, you're off and running pretty much. Right. I will tell you, we do have a certification program, which we can talk about later, but there is a list of questions that are available for those that become certified with us that they can access that might help ease the question as well. Now, I did mention the second piece of that pie, which is there is what we call the slow walker. And this tends to be the older generation. They tend to live centrically close. I mean, by live, I mean they maybe go out for errands, they go to doctor's appointments, but they don't do a lot of venturing out of the home. They're very close centric. And those are folks that are going to be a challenge for travel advisors because they don't use equipment. They don't necessarily think they need equipment. But if you put them in a very big resort or you put them on a very big ship, they may underestimate their activity level. So kind of approaching it the way I suggested in the question, any mobility issues, that triggers them to say, oh, you know what, I do have kind of an issue walking long distances, or my husband might have an issue walking long distances, or, he uses oxygen part-time, but, I don't think you can do that on a ship. Well, sure, we can do that on a ship. So those are kinds of things to be careful of. And that's why it's so important for travel advisors to be proactive.
Right. So talk about the certification class, because we've got a couple comments in the chat here about adding the training to their to-do list. How does that work?
I thank you so much for allowing me to talk about it, because I am a trainer by nature. I have been a trainer for 30 something years, and I love our program. I think it's beneficial to everyone, regardless of whether you think that this is going to be a big part of your business or not. It's a very small, relatively speaking, short program. It's only about 65 minutes if you were to sit down and take it from beginning to end. It is broken into 3 pieces that you can take at your leisure. So you can take one and go do something else and come back and take another. But I do caution against that a little bit, because then people kind of get distracted. I'm a former travel advisor too, I confess. So I get it. I know how much is on your plate, and I definitely don't want to add more to it. The first module just deals with statistics. For example, one I shared with you before, but I think is really impactful when it comes to this marketplace and what we should be doing. This marketplace, people who have a permanent special need have about $220 billion in discretionary income, and they're only spending about 13.6 of that on travel because they don't know that they can. Right. So that's, again, if we're being proactive, that's something that we can help change. So those kind of statistics, that kind of information is contained in Module 1. Module 2 gives you a working knowledge, just a working knowledge, no big memorization, trust me, on the equipment so you can tell the difference between a rollator and a walker. You know, some people don't realize what a power chair is, those kinds of things. And then the third module to me is one of the most important because it goes through marketing do's and don'ts and helpful hints. And also you also get to hear recorded conversations between a travel advisor and a potential customer. So you know how it's brought up, you know how it's talked about. So it helps put you at ease when you go to have those conversations on your own.
Right. Karen, I have to tell you that my mom lives in a retirement community, and she's in a, it's not assisted. Well, it is assisted living. She's not in that section of the community, but they go and they have dinner, and she was having dinner one night with a group of people, and they were talking about travel, and she was amazed by how many people didn't realize they could still travel even though they lived there or had never traveled. Like, it's not Fort Knox. They can come and go as they please.
Right.
But she's kind of become this Pied Piper for still traveling. And, they all, some of them are walkers or wheelchairs or scooters. Some of them a cane, some of them nothing at all, but they never did it before. So they don't know that it's an option at their age, and age isn't a challenge.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting. They're trying to find some time and a date to basically cruise together because some of them didn't even know that this was still an option anymore.
Well, make sure they check with Ashley first.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not besties. They're just dinner partners. Yeah, exactly. So,
no, but there are 4 types of people that we can help. Okay, those that have never traveled, we can enlighten them on how they can travel. Those that maybe have slowed down travel because issues are happening, they really don't realize that they can continue, at maybe a different pace or at the same pace. Those that have stopped because they don't know that it's possible. And then the temporary ones, this is another one people don't think about. We can help prevent your cancellations. If somebody has an accident, unfortunately, maybe they break their leg or something happens and, they want to cancel their trip, as long as their doctor approves them to go, we can still help them go. And that way they're not disappointing their family and friends. They're not disappointing themselves. They can still go and pretty much, you can put a broken leg on a scooter and be faster than the people that are walking. So you're not going to be holding anybody back.
I love that. It's showing everyone that, the world is open and it's open to them.
Oh, and by the way, I did want to mention to you too, we do pay commission. So a lot of travel advisors don't realize that we do pay commission. So again, we're never going to make you rich on our commissions. That's not the idea. The idea is that we want you to grow your client base. That's how we're going to help you grow your business.
And make your clients very, very happy.
Exactly.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Karen, for being here. We're going to continue this conversation. Thank you so much. You guys, Special Needs Group is in the portal if you're watching and you're a KHM agent. So check it out. Do that certification. But we can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Karen. You guys, next up, we've got some agents who have experience booking travel for themselves or others that have some needs and that need to be considered when traveling. These range from dietary to neurodevelopmental to vision or hearing loss. And here to discuss are Amy Garner and Jean Borne. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Let's see. There's Amy. Hi, guys. So I want you to introduce yourself and just kind of share the need or the challenge that you have experienced booking. So Jean, why don't we start with you?
Okay. So hi, we live in Baltimore, and my husband lost his sight when he was about 21 years old. And back in 2008, he had a change in job that necessitated him getting a seeing eye dog because he had a very long commute from home to work. And we traveled extensively with the dog, and I had shared with the DEI group our experiences, and that's how I was invited to come talk to our experiences with traveling with Ollie today.
Perfect. And Amy.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Amy Garner. I have been a travel agent for the last 5 years, and I have a very diverse client base when it comes to disabilities. I have some clients who have physical challenges, dietary restrictions, and especially, neurodiversity. And that's something that's personal to me because of my own family. So we take a lot of considerations when it comes to sensory experiences and that kind of thing when we're traveling.
Well, and as many of you know, my family, my husband and daughter are both celiac, so we have to take that into consideration no matter where we go. And because of that, and because of our experiences, a lot of people do call me wanting my help with traveling with dietary issues, peanut allergies, things like that. So, it has been good for business as well. But it's really been quite a journey and a learning experience for myself and for my family. So let's go ahead and talk about, Jean, you sent over some pictures. Ollie was on our graphic this week. You traveled extensively with him. Were there things that worked better than others when you traveled with a seeing eye dog?
Well, I was thinking about just modes of transportation that we had taken with him, and we traveled on planes, trains, automobiles, and cruise ships. So the dog was very well traveled. We had him for 8 years, and he saw up and down the East Coast and out west, and he had been to Alaska twice, Disney World a couple times. And it was just really what we needed to do was plan ahead and make sure we had the necessary supplies with us. Because when you're on a cruise ship, it's difficult to get dog food or extra supplies that we needed for him. So we had to pack all that in advance. And we would make sure most of the time we carried it on with us just in case things got lost in the shuffle. So at least we knew we had his dog food with us. And it was important to pack extra. So like when you advise your clients to take extra medication, we advised, our friends who have service dogs that they travel with, and we would always pack extra bags of food with us just in case something happened and we were delayed for a couple of days. At least we knew the dog could eat.
Was there a type of travel that just worked really well and Ollie just, I'm sure he was so well adjusted that everything kind of came easy, but was there something that you found was just easiest for all of you?
He loved just being on the go. He'd jump in the car ready to go. He was very proficient with the airplanes. He knew we traveled a lot between Baltimore and New Orleans. So he knew the Baltimore airport very well and the New Orleans airport very well. And it got to the point where he knew the exits to go to when we would get off the plane so he could go outside and relieve himself. So he knew exactly where to go at that point too. So it just, he was really good on ships. He was more of a city dog than a country dog, but he was just ready to go and travel, and he smiled in the pictures just like our kids did. So
I love it. Amy, what works for your booking travel with, neurodevelopmental challenges? What does that look like, and what things helped you to select the best trip for your family or for your clients?
Yeah. So, I think something that Karen said earlier is really important, which is that a large portion of people aren't going to say anything at first, especially when it comes to, any kind of neurodiversity, if that's autism or just a sensory issue. So the first hurdle is even getting people to tell you that they have a need that needs to be accommodated. And so from there, it's just important to look at programs depending on the age too. So that they, at Disney World, we have the Disability Access Service Pass, which is an incredible tool for people with, with any kind of sensory need, especially, that really makes that a much more accessible trip for them. But then it's also considerations like, where's a quiet place that they can get away? Or my husband needs to move. That's how his anxiety manifests itself. So where can they get out and go, especially on a cruise ship, making sure that they know about the walking path and those kinds of things is really important. And then also helping them prepare for the transitional process. So a lot of times people will have routines that they're set in. And so helping them establish that new routine or be able to predict what it's going to be like can make their trip much more successful for them. And so that even can translate over to some of my guests who have physical disabilities, where they just want to know, okay, am I going to be, what's the wheelchair situation going to be like at the airport? Or, okay, I have a medication that's going to need to be refrigerated. And even things like calling the hotel to make sure that they have truly a mini fridge and not a cooler in their room that won't keep their medication cool enough. And so it's just helping them think ahead and make sure that they've hit that next step and that they know what to expect.
Well, and I think it's really important, and we've talked about this a lot, oddly enough, in the last 2 years, is really having that conversation where you might have qualified your client or talked to them primarily through either text or email. I feel like if you get on the phone with them and start to ask these questions, sometimes they get to know you better, and then they're more willing to open up and share. Because I know a lot of people wouldn't share, hey, because they're used to dealing with it maybe on their own. And so, reminding them, hey, that ride's really loud. They might not ever tell you that, yet you might have a whole resource document that would say, you know what, I've sent lots of families to Disney World, and these are the rides that tend to be really good, and these are the ones that can kind of be a hot button. Wear the headphones on these or don't go on them at all.
Absolutely.
So I think sometimes we have all these resources, yet our clients are afraid to ask us for them. Are there any resources that you've used that help make the booking process go more smoothly? Jean, let's start with you.
Okay, so for me, there's on Cruise Critic, there was actually a thread for a long time. It was cruising with a service dog, anything you need to know. And there were people on there who had cruised with dogs long before we had, and they were a really, really good resource for me to learn about experiences that they had had and to troubleshoot potential issues that may come along the way. And it was just for us to be aware of things that could happen and to be prepared for that and to know who to talk to in advance in order to make the trip go a little bit more smoothly.
Okay. And Amy, how about you?
Definitely. It's something that's obvious, but it's something that I overlooked when I was starting as an agent is calling the destination, calling the hotel or the cruise line, and talking to them about what is available. I'm always surprised by how much more accommodating different suppliers and destinations are than what I anticipate or even what their website might reveal. And so a lot of times I'll see where people have gone and had an experience where they felt like their needs weren't met or weren't accommodated. And I'm like, oh, I know they have a program for that. And they just didn't know to ask, So that really, I know it sounds obvious, but is calling and asking those questions to, to your resort or to the cruise line, like, is there a lift to get into the pool? And things like that might be barriers that clients just assume they're not going to have access to.
Yes. Is there a zero entry pool? I had to find that out one time before. I know I became kind of known at all the Denver area events as the person that would raise her hand and be like, so tell me how you handle dietary issues. And because the only way you're going to learn was by asking the question. And so we'd be at these events with lots of hotel partners. And I would just ask that question, especially if they didn't describe the food or, we've got some partners who, use the term gourmet all-inclusive. And, you're getting a feel for what that's going to be like. Others have a different term. So I really had to be that person in the room that was constantly like, explain to me how this works. How, do they have to see someone? Does the chef come out? What does that look like? And in all honesty, you guys, when it comes to food issues, the price point's always higher. So whenever I have someone that comes to me and said, we've got a nut allergy or celiac or anything like that, I immediately say, add a couple thousand onto your budget because you have to pay for peace of mind to a certain degree when it comes to your food. So let me ask you, first, Jean, I want to say you had mentioned to me on the phone that you also use the Department of Agriculture as a resource and your vet for traveling with Ollie. Can you share a little bit about that?
So to travel internationally with the dog, you need to have paperwork. And whether it's a pet or a service dog, you need to have paperwork filed. So the Department of Agriculture was one resource where we had to take a paper to the vet. And in order to travel with the dog internationally, the vet had to clear the dog that he was healthy to travel. And so the vet had to sign off on the paperwork. And then some countries too needed additional paperwork. So the Bahamas, for example, we needed to contact them. We had import paperwork from the Bahamas that we had to fill out. And then we had to send that back and then hope it got to the Bahamas in time before we arrived on the cruise ship.
Oh, goodness.
So that was another thing to worry about. So
there's a few ducks that you had to make sure that you had lined up.
Yes. And then we would get to the international destination and then hope everything was correct.
What has been your best travel experience?
Well, we've had some really good experiences cruising with him, but really, probably, honestly, our best experiences had been at Disney. We had been to Disney World a couple times with Ollie, and the cast members were aware of the relief areas where the dog was allowed to go. So we had a map with us all the time that we had gotten at customer service, but we would just go to these designated spots. They would let us behind the scenes. You know, we weren't allowed to take any pictures while we were back there because we saw some things that is not Disney magic. But so, you know, the dog did their thing. We were able to chat with the cast members while we were back there taking a little bit of a break, and then we would come back. We were able to use the child swap there because there were some rides like Space Mountain and Splash Mountain, Thunder Mountain that the dog cannot go on. But there were rides that he could go on. Like he loved Dumbo, Pirates of the Caribbean, the race cars, and he did all that kind of stuff. But the rides that he couldn't go on, we would do the child swap where my husband would take the kids and then, you know, they would ride and then I would stay with Ollie and then we'd do the switch and then come back. So the kids were happy they got to ride the things twice. But Disney was very accommodating with them, and the dog just loved the rides. And when you were talking about the sensory, Toy Story Mania he was not a fan of that because that's the spinning and then the noise. He did not like that one, but everything else he was pretty good with. So.
That's interesting. Okay, Amy, favorite experience, best experience.
I'm going to echo Jean here and say Disney Cruise Line, though. You know, they have it's so easy to go. You know, they make everything so comfortable. They're so accommodating. Even with kids who have special needs. So on my last cruise, I had my godson who has a speech delay and some sensory needs. And they were so fantastic with him that it really, his mom had so much anxiety going into the trip that she was just never going to get a break. She wasn't ever going to see the adult areas. And he loved Kids Club. I thought that no one could love it more than my children, but he was gone. We didn't see him the whole trip practically. But they just, you know, food allergy is the same thing. It's such a relief to know that they're taking care of all of that.
Yes.
So it really lets us drop our guard and enjoy our family.
Yes, I would absolutely agree. Disney Cruise Line, Disney theme parks do a great job with food challenges. I will also say that Palace Resorts, Charisma Resorts, we've had great luck with. I will say that one thing I've noticed recently is they tend to lump all of the food challenges together. So nut and dairy and soy and you know, gluten, they lump those all together and then there's your menu. And so knowing how things are made, when we get the menu, I'm always like, now why isn't that gluten-free? So we do go back and ask and say, look, we're not all of these things. We're just this one thing. So I can have this. And so that's something we've noticed recently because they're kind of lumping all of those food things together. But, you know, we're working through it. And, you know, we have to ask questions. You can't be afraid to ask questions and ask for help when it comes to these things and to just be very, very honest. Are there any lessons that you've learned throughout the process?
Well, for us, it was definitely do our homework ahead of time and to know the laws and especially the Americans with Disability Act, be familiar with that. know what can and cannot be asked. And also there's something called the Air Carrier Access Act, which is a further extension. It's similar to the ADA, but just applies to the airlines. And we had an issue on an airplane once, and my husband worked for the Department of Transportation, and he's also an attorney. So he was able to pleasantly tell the flight attendant what was going on, because they had told him that he couldn't sit in the window seat. He had to sit in this particular seat. And basically he can sit anywhere on the plane as long as it's not the exit row. And as long as the dog isn't blocking the aisle, he would, he'd be okay. And typically he sat in the bulkhead with the kids. As the kids were small when we first got the dog, and then as the kids grew up, I became the short one, so I sat in the front. So the dog he would fit underneath the seat, but normally he would sit with one of the kids and have a little bit more room to stretch out. And he was told that he had to sit in a particular seat, and he says, no, I want to sit by the window. And she's saying, you can't sit by the window. And he says, yes, I can, because it's this law, and this, this is something else. And they had a supervisor come on, and they said, yes, you're absolutely right. You can sit wherever you want, as long as it's not the exit row. So it's just, things like that people may not be aware of, and just to know what your rights are, and, and just be forceful about it, but yet be polite,
And Jean, with a service dog, do you have to book an additional seat, or they can sit at your feet? Because I feel like support animals are a little bit different.
Yeah, and support animals are a little bit different than service animals too. And then of course pets you have to pay for, but we never had to pay for a seat for him.
Right. Okay.
Nothing additional.
Okay. Amy, any lessons you've learned along the way?
I think one of the most important things is to take up space, to ask questions, to be willing to slow things down. I feel like so many of my clients are worried about inconveniencing the people they're traveling with. And very rarely is that ever an issue, So take up the space, rent the scooter, take those accommodations that are offered to you so that you have an equitable experience to everyone else around you. And if it slows you down a little bit, or it slows somebody down, then it is what it is. I remember going to eat at a specific restaurant, and one of our travel party had a food allergy, and we were waiting for the chef, and it slowed our meal down by almost an hour between the back and forth. And she kept apologizing, and I was like, no, I would much rather spend this hour here than be driving you to the hospital after this.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Take the time. So take up space.
Perfect. I love it. Ladies, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Any agents that are out there, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to the education team, and we'll see if we can get some answers for you. But of course, there are great resources within Special Needs Group, and of course, our DE&I committee. We just want to make sure that travel is available and accessible to everyone, and that as advisors, you're not afraid to book this sort of travel. Because I think it's important that everyone has the opportunity. So thank you both for spending your time with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You guys, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to our sponsors for their continued support, especially Apple Leisure Group, our overall sponsor. So as I mentioned during Ashley's segment, she will be hosting the show next week while I'm sailing with 12 members of my family on the incredible Symphony of the Seas. So I'm going to have lots to say after that trip. Perhaps there'll be a segment called Should I Travel with My Family? So check out my Facebook page or Instagram for all of the shenanigans. There will be lots of them. You guys have a great rest of your week. Happy selling, and we'll see you in just a couple weeks. But don't forget to tune in next week with Ashley. Take care, everyone.